The grand, sweeping tapestries of tradition that define the British monarchy have long fascinated the world, drawing millions into a narrative woven from centuries of history, pageantry, and deeply guarded family dynamics. Every public appearance by the House of Windsor is a meticulously choreographed spectacle, a masterclass in optics where every smile, every wave, and every strategic placement within a crowd is designed to project stability, unity, and an unbreakable continuity of the crown. Behind the heavy oak doors of the palaces, however, lies a complex landscape of human emotion, ancient rivalries, and evolving modern pressures that the public rarely gets to glimpse in its entirety. The modern spectator is often left to read between the lines, deciphering the subtle shifts in alliances and the quiet exclusions that occur away from the flashing cameras of the international press. In recent times, these public gatherings have become a fascinating mirror, reflecting not just the celebratory milestones of a historic family, but also the deep, almost irreparable fractures that threaten to redefine the institution for generations to come. As the world watches these high society events unfold against the backdrop of historic estates, the undercurrents of tension become impossible to ignore, offering a compelling study in how a medieval institution navigates the brutal scrutiny of the 21st century. It is a world where presence speaks volumes, but absence can be absolutely deafening, signaling shifts in power and status that resonate far beyond the castle walls. If you are captivated by the intricate inner workings of the world's most famous dynasty and want to stay informed on the shifting dynamics shaping their future, please consider subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into these compelling stories. The true nature of these royal gatherings often reveals itself not in the official press releases, but in the unspoken boundaries that have been drawn between those who remain within the inner circle and those who have found themselves on the periphery. This unspoken reality was vividly on display during a recent weekend that brought the entire extended family together under the grey skies of the British countryside, ostensibly to celebrate a joyous new chapter in the family history. The event was the wedding of Peter Phillips, the son of Princess Anne, which served as a massive showcase for the institution, drawing a glittering turnout that included the King, the Queen, and the Prince and Princess of Wales. It was a visual panorama of the great and the good, a gathering of the clan that seemed on the surface to celebrate the enduring bonds of a family that has weathered countless storms over the decades. Yet, as the cameras panned across the sea of familiar faces, capturing the laughter, the shared memories, and the warmth of cousins reuniting, one could not help but notice a massive, glaring void at the heart of the celebration. The absence of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex was so pronounced that it quickly became the primary talking point among observers, overshadowing the matrimonial bliss of the day and highlighting the deep chasm that now separates them from the rest of the family. While certain narratives began to circulate suggesting that the decision to stay away was a voluntary choice made to avoid creating a media circus, insiders quickly dismissed such claims as a complete misreading of the situation. The harsh reality, according to those familiar with the palace dynamics, is that the couple was simply not invited, a stark and undeniable indication of their current status within the family hierarchy. This was not a case of a busy schedule or a preference for the sunny shores of California, but rather a definitive boundary drawn by a family that has grown weary of the ongoing drama and the perceived betrayals of the past few years. The hurt caused by this exclusion is said to be deeply felt, particularly by a prince who once cherished the close-knit relationships he shared with his cousins. Remembering the days of laughter in the palace hallways during the holidays and the shared experiences of growing up under the intense spotlight of royalty. To see the entire family gathered together, laughing and reminiscing about the late Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip, while being entirely excluded from that circle of warmth, is a bitter pill to swallow for someone who now finds himself looking in from the outside. The reality of actions having consequences is becoming increasingly apparent as the bonds that once seemed unbreakable have withered under the weight of public revelations and personal grievances. For many years, the relationship between these cousins was a source of strength, a shared understanding of a unique and demanding life that few others could comprehend, making the current estrangement all the more tragic for those involved. The idea that a major family milestone could take place without even an invitation being extended to a prominent member of the family speaks to a level of alienation that goes far beyond a simple disagreement. It marks a fundamental shift, an entry into a phase where the Sussexes are no longer merely distant relatives living abroad, but individuals who have been formally and deliberately set apart from the royal fold. This separation is not just a personal matter between grieving relatives, but a highly visible public statement about the boundaries of loyalty and the cost of challenging the institutional status quo. As the public analyzes every photograph and every guest list, the true depth of this division becomes clearer, painting a picture of a family that is determined to move forward into a new era, even if it means leaving some of its most famous members behind in the shadows of the past. The deep fissures within the House of Windsor are no longer mere whispers or tabloid speculation, but a stark, undeniable reality that shapes the daily operations and public perceptions of the monarchy. While the absence at the recent family wedding sent a clear message to the world, the true depth of the bitterness between the brothers reveals a relationship that has deteriorated far beyond a simple sibling rivalry. This bitter split between the Prince of Wales and the Duke of Sussex has reached a point where their paths can no longer cross without causing an institutional crisis, a situation so severe that had there been any chance of the California-based couple attending the celebration, the heir to the throne and his wife would have completely removed themselves from the event. This level of division is unprecedented in modern royal history, demonstrating that the boundaries drawn between the two camps are absolute and unyielding. The public is only now beginning to fully comprehend the scale of this animosity, which is fueled not just by personal hurt, but by a series of deliberate actions that the senior working royals view as a fundamental breach of trust and a betrayal of the family institution. The root of this ongoing anger can be traced to a succession of public disclosures, memoirs, and documentary series that laid bare the private conversations and vulnerabilities of the family, transforming personal grievances into a global media spectacle. For the Prince of Wales, the protection of his family and the preservation of the crown are paramount, and the repeated attacks on the institution have created a barrier that time alone cannot heal. This is a conflict that has moved past the point of quiet diplomacy or private reconciliation, as every move made by either side is scrutinized for its broader implications on the future of the British monarchy. The consequences of these broken bonds are visible in the physical spaces the family once shared, spaces that served as symbols of their connection to the United Kingdom and their roles within the state. A primary example of this tangible separation is the saga surrounding Frogmore Cottage, a historic and beautiful property nestled within the historic grounds of Windsor Great Park, near the imposing walls of Windsor Castle. During what many now look back on as the good old days, when the Sussexes were still considered central, working members of the royal fold, this cottage was handed to them as a primary residence, undergoing a massive and highly publicised renovation costing approximately £2.4 million. Even after their dramatic departure from royal duties and their relocation across the Atlantic, the couple maintained the lease on this British property, continuing to pay their rent with the explicit idea that this historic cottage would remain their permanent British bolt hole, a secure and familiar hub whenever they returned to the United Kingdom, either individually, together, or with their young children. However, the publication of the highly controversial and deeply personal biography, which contained stinging criticisms of senior family members, including highly personal remarks about his brother, proved to be a final breaking point for the monarch. King Charles took one long look at the contents of that publication and decided that enough was enough, initiating an eviction that essentially stripped the couple of their remaining physical foothold within the royal estate. This decisive action caught the couple entirely off guard, leaving them without a secure official residence in their homeland and causing a deep, lingering resentment that persists to this day, as they view the eviction as an unnecessarily harsh punishment for expressing their truth. From the perspective of the palace and the wider public, however, actions have inevitable consequences, and the notion that one could launch such a public assault on the dignity of the family while expecting to retain the privileges and properties associated with that family is seen as entirely unrealistic. The loss of Frogmore Cottage has created a significant logistical and emotional dilemma for the Duke, who reportedly still harbours a strong desire to establish a permanent hub or residence in the United Kingdom, believing it is vital for his ongoing connection to his homeland and his various charitable endeavours. This desire, however, is not entirely shared by his spouse, who appears far less enthusiastic about returning to a country where she felt deeply unhappy and heavily scrutinized, creating a potential point of tension within their own planning for the future. The logistical challenges of returning to the United Kingdom are further complicated by an upcoming packed schedule of appearances that has reportedly caused considerable annoyance among the active working members of the royal family. The Duke is scheduled to arrive in the country for a series of high-profile events, including previews for the upcoming Invictus Games, an initiative that remains incredibly close to his heart and represents one of his most successful global platforms. This upcoming visit is not expected to feature any appearance from his wife, who is widely believed to be staying behind in California, further emphasizing her complete detachment from life in Great Britain. The Duke's upcoming itinerary is described by insiders as a relentless, week-long blitz of the British media, featuring multiple appearances for various charities and organizations that he continues to support independently of the Crown. Within the walls of the palace, these activities are frequently viewed with a degree of skepticism and are often referred to as faux royal engagements, as they mimic the structure and style of official royal visits while remaining entirely outside the governance and approval of the reigning monarch. There is a distinct feeling among palace officials that these heavily publicized charity appearances are a deliberate attempt to re-establish a powerful public presence and media footprint within the United Kingdom. Driven by a growing realization that life and business ventures in California have not necessarily yielded the massive uncritical success that was originally envisioned when they chose to step back. This ongoing effort to maintain a public profile in Britain while living as private citizens abroad creates a continuous undercurrent of friction with the working royals, who must navigate their official, state-sanctioned duties alongside what is essentially a competing, independent royal roadshow that commands immense global media attention. While the bitter estrangement between the brothers continues to dominate global headlines, the complex web of internal royal relationships extends far beyond the immediate line of succession, touching upon branches of the family that find themselves navigating their own intense controversies. Despite his complete separation from the working core of the monarchy, the Duke of Sussex has managed to retain a certain degree of closeness with his maternal and paternal cousins, most notably the daughters of Prince Andrew, Duke of York, and Sarah, Duchess of York. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie have long maintained a delicate position within the family, acting as a rare bridge between the California-based couple and the firmly established royal establishment in London. This ongoing connection has become a subject of intense discussion within the palace walls, particularly following the prominent presence of both princesses at the recent high society wedding of Peter Phillips. Their inclusion in such a major family event was viewed by many as a clear sign that they remain firmly within the extended royal fold, despite the dark cloud of controversy that has increasingly hovered over their father and, by extension, their own historical involvement in his financial and business activities. For several years, serious questions have been raised regarding the extent to which the sisters may have been exposed to or involved in their father's controversial international dealings, with reports suggesting that Princess Eugenie accompanied her father on several highly unorthodox business trips to the Middle East during the period when he served as a special representative for international trade. These associations have deeply troubled the Prince of Wales, who has long advocated for a zero-tolerance approach to any actions that could potentially tarnish the integrity and reputation of the monarchy. When the public furor regarding these complex financial networks first intensified, the Prince of Wales reportedly made a direct and significant intervention, offering his cousins a structured opportunity to completely clear their names and protect their public standing. This offer involved bringing in independent, highly qualified ethical accountants to conduct a thorough and completely transparent audit of their personal finances and business arrangements, providing definitive proof to the British public that they had not benefited in any way from any underhand or ethically questionable business activities associated with their father. The princesses, however, chose to decline this formal offer of assistance, a decision that sent shockwaves through the senior leadership of the family and left the future king deeply frustrated and furious about the potential long-term repercussions for the institution he is destined to lead. The Prince of Wales's primary concern in this delicate matter is not rooted in personal animosity, but rather in a profound sense of institutional responsibility, as he is intensely focused on ensuring that these deeply complex and unresolved family problems are not simply left for him to inherit and manage when he eventually ascends to the throne. He believes it is fundamentally unfair that the current administration should avoid making the difficult decisions necessary to resolve these ongoing financial controversies, thereby passing the inevitable public backlash and administrative burden onto his future reign. This forward-thinking perspective is a key defining characteristic of the Prince of Wales's approach to leadership, distinguishing him as a modernizer who is keenly aware of the rapidly changing expectations of the contemporary world. While he possesses a deep, genuine affection for his cousins on a personal level, having grown up alongside them in the close-knit environment of the royal estates, his ultimate loyalty remains entirely with the long-term survival and moral clarity of the British Crown. This insistence on absolute transparency and accountability has sparked a much broader and more profound public debate regarding the entire financial structure of the royal family, with a growing segment of the British population expressing deep dissatisfaction with the traditional system of housing allocations and property management. For generations, the public accepted the idea that extended members of the royal family were entitled to live in magnificent palatial properties across the country, often paying what are known as peppercorn rents, which are essentially token payments that bear no relation to the actual market value of these historic estates. This privilege was famously enjoyed by Prince Andrew at Royal Lodge in Windsor Great Park, as well as the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh at their expansive country residence. The controversy has reached a boiling point with recent revelations that some of these individuals have been actively subletting smaller buildings and cottages situated within their heavily subsidized estates, effectively pocketing the rental income for themselves, while the British public continues to contribute to the overall maintenance and security of the properties. Palace officials have consistently defended these arrangements by stating that any rental income generated from these properties is directly reinvested into the highly expensive upkeep and structural preservation of these historic buildings, rather than being used for personal enrichment or luxury pastimes such as horse racing. However, in an era characterized by widespread economic pressures and a demanding call for institutional accountability, these traditional explanations are no longer sufficient to satisfy a skeptical public that demands complete, uncompromised financial clarity. Prominent royal biographers, historians, and former government ministers have increasingly warned that unless the reigning monarch takes immediate, decisive control of this situation and forces every member of his extended family to pay appropriate market-rate rents for their residences, the future stability and public support for the monarchy could be severely endangered. It is within this rapidly changing landscape that the distinct approaches of the current monarch and his heir become most apparent, highlighting a significant generational shift in how the business of royalty is conducted. The current king, having spent the vast majority of his life immersed in the traditional, centuries-old practices of the 20th century, is often viewed as a creature of the past who finds it inherently difficult to break away from the comfortable, established customs of his ancestors. In contrast, the Prince of Wales is already making highly conscious, progressive choices that demonstrate an advanced understanding of modern public relations and philanthropic responsibility. Through his strategic management of the Duchy of Cornwall, the heir to the throne has actively sold off various commercial assets and redirected those substantial funds toward highly impactful social initiatives, including the construction of innovative homeless shelters and community support systems across the country. This proactive approach proves that the future king sees the survival of the royal family as being intrinsically linked to its ability to give back to society in a transparent, measurable way, rather than relying on secretive, historical privileges that alienate the modern taxpayer. By prioritizing genuine philanthropy over institutional insulation, he is already busy constructing a completely different type of royalty, one that is fully prepared to face the intense scrutiny of a new age and ensure that the House of Windsor remains relevant, respected, and securely grounded in the hearts of the people it serves.